Hi there, Seb from the review show. We will get to that just in a second, but before we do, on behalf of League One Lowdown, brought to you from the Deck Podcast Network, we just want to say a massive thank you to our subscribers on YouTube. We've just reached 1,000. So if you are part of that 1,000, a massive thank you very much for all your support. It's been a brilliant season, our first one as part of the Deck Podcast Network, and we got plenty of exciting things in the mix. So just a reminder, if you've not already subscribed, please join the 1,000 that have, and also a big thank you to those continue to listen to our podcast on the audio channels in which you do so. Again, every time we download it, it's much appreciated, and every time we listen as well. On behalf of myself, Jamie, Sam, and Callum, thank you very much for your support, and we'll get on with the episode. Hello and welcome to the League One Lowdown Review episode brought to you by the Deck Podcast Network. Myself, Seb, put my teeth back in. Myself, Seb Jones, joined as ever by Jamie Johnson. Jamie, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I thought I'd be the one struggling today, but no, I'm glad it's you sort of starting off like that. But yeah, no, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, there's a reason why you are feeling particularly good on this fine weekend, because your beloved hometown are going to be on this podcast next year.
Yeah, finally, I'm sort of joined the group. Everyone else is already a League One team, and yeah, Doncaster got promoted yesterday, so a tiny bit worse for wear today. But no, absolutely fantastic. Yeah, we made a little bit hard work of it in the end, but yeah, absolutely fantastic game. I was on the fourth tier podcast, the fourth tier FIBA podcast last week, sort of talking a bit and a little bit nervous. So it was glad they got over the line in the end. But yeah, really great day and hopefully as well we can sort of get the title. And if we win, or better, Port Vale, who also have been promoted. Then we'll clinch the title as well, which will be nice next weekend. But yeah, so Doncaster and Port Vale are already up, and Cardiff are coming down. So we're starting to figure out who is going to be joining us next season on the podcast, as well as knowing from this weekend a few that are leaving us.
Yeah, League One is certainly shaping up for next season. As you mentioned, the plenty of clubs are going to join the League One guest list, if you like, for next season. Obviously very tight at the bottom of the Championship. So apart from Cardiff, the other two spots yet to be confirmed. We'll crack on with some of the results from the weekend. Obviously, most of the games were on Saturday, but there's a couple that we'll mention towards the end that took place on Sunday. But we're going to start off with a game that sealed things at the top in a game between Wrexham and Charlton. It was the late kickoff, and Wrexham had to wait, but their party came, and they certainly made the most of it, Jamie.
Well, exactly that. I mean, the way I sort of put it in our notes, it was sort of Wrexham seal promotion, and Burton Albion, as we'll get to, sort of that one step closer to staying up. But the headline story of the weekend is obviously Wrexham securing their promotion out of the division. And it was, as you mentioned, the late kick-off on Saturday against Charlton, and it was a massive game, really, because if Charlton had won, then it sort of spun everything, and would have been four teams battling for the second spot come the final day. But as it was, Wrexham have sort of denied us that last day drama, but for themselves, a really historic third consecutive promotion. They've gone from the National League into League Two, into League One, and now into the Championship. Three in a row. The first, I think, to do that. It's absolutely remarkable, really. And they did it a Sam Smith brace. Oliver Rathbone with the first goal, which was a really nice finish sort of early on, before Sam Smith got his brace. One of the January signings, and yeah, winning at the Circus. A lot was made, obviously, of that during the week after Nathan Jones's comments. But a massive victory for Wrexham in the end is sort of the top and bottom of it.
It sort of backfired, I think, those comments for Nathan Jones, hasn't there, really? Making a big
Yeah,
thing.
it's one of those, isn't it? I mean, it's storming a teacup sort of thing, I think, but it made for a good headline, didn't it? And it made for a bit of galvanisation, perhaps, in terms of, sort of the Wrexham fans, and they've not took too kindly to it. And obviously, at the end, I think at the end of it, the Wrexham on their Twitter, they put a great day at the circus, something like a fun day out at the circus, which is sort of nice, that bit of banter back, isn't it? But I guess the important thing is just how well they've done. And then we mentioned obviously a lot, and Callum and Sam too, in terms of sort of expenditure for Birmingham, and Wrexham fall into that category as well in terms of spending a lot of money. We mentioned Sam Smith with a couple of goals for him coming in January, but no matter how much money they've spent it very well, firstly, and they've still done remarkably to get automatic promotion. And none of us, I don't think, put them in automatic promotion at the start of the season, and we expected them to do well, but to do this well is quite the achievement for Wrexham and Phil Parkinson as well.
Yeah, for sure. Full credit to them. You mentioned sort of the back-to-back promotions. It certainly takes a feat for a club to achieve that. And yeah, fair play to Wrexham. Sort of the players that they're bringing in, they're getting the right players. Sort of bottom level championship players, if you like, and in some cases, higher than that. But you just only have to look at the January incomings, the likes of Sam Smith, the likes of Jay Rodriguez, Ollie Rathbone brought in the summer, and they clearly absolutely showing the quality, and yeah, they've done things the right way in terms of bringing in quality players that can help them next season, given their sort of experiences elsewhere. So yeah, massive kudos to them. Particularly, we've mentioned a couple of the players there, but certainly Rathbone has been really impressive all season, and the goal he scored, as you mentioned, opener scoring, terrific strike from outside the area on Saturday. And yeah, I just think it's been a great season for them. Sort of. They've left it for the wire in terms of the battling with Wycombe for that final spot. But they're taking advantage of, I guess, the Wycombe collapse, if you like, in terms of Wycombe had that second place for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then they dipped, and then Wrexham just took advantage, which you have to do, and they've done that, and they've got the second place to sort of credit them of that, if you like.
Well, it's always about hitting form at the right time, isn't it? And that's the sort of they've timed their run to perfection, because you're always going to have ups and downs in a season. You're never going to be perfect throughout, unless you're Birmingham, perhaps. But they've lost just one of their last 13 games and now 9 unbeaten. And that run, to get them over the line into second, is absolutely remarkable. And they've done it at the right time, obviously.
Yeah.
The real key that they've sort of hit this good patch coming up to the end of the season, and Charlton were the other ones in a good bit of form, with Wycombe, as you've mentioned, really slipping off, and we'll get to them in a minute. They were 6 unbeaten going into this game, and then they've derailed that, because if they'd have gone 7 unbeaten, then it is really going down to the wire last game of the season. But as it was, Wrexham's sort of good form, they came out of it on the end, and that home crowd, and obviously the pitch invasion and so on, and what you always get in these sort of occasions, but that atmosphere always seems to get them over the line, and they've had good home form all the way through the season, which has been a real key for them. And this just, I guess, the latest example of that, adding that little bit extra for Wrexham.
For sure, and I guess they were victorious over Charlton, who themselves have actually been on a pretty good run of form, albeit sort of come to a halt with the result. But I guess it just shows the difference in terms of Charlton, I guess, were in the past few weeks have sort of been picked as a possible outside for that top two. But it just shows the gulf in class, I guess, between the two sides.
I don't know about gulf in class. I think that's a bit harsh on Charlton's part. I mean, I think the 3-0, obviously it's quite the margin, isn't it? It's not. I think it probably looks. I can't say I watched the game, obviously doing other things after that Doncaster win yesterday, but I wouldn't say there was a gulf in class between the two teams. What does seem to be the case is that Charlton didn't turn up, which coming off that result against Wycombe, where they absolutely battered Wycombe, and you think, well, they're the ones to sort of watch in this vein of form now, and if they can follow that up with another win at one of the toughest places to go in the division, then they're really in the position to put a late surge in for that second spot. With Wrexham, they would have then been needing to get a result at Lincoln, who have been sort of the party poopers of the promotion, pushing teams of late. But in the end, Wrexham did more than enough, and Charlton just didn't seem to be at the races at the racecourse ground.
Well, yeah, clearly so. And I don't mean just about Charlton. I meant it sort of as if just didn't have enough quality to perhaps in the final push to go for the automatic spots, unlike perhaps Wrexham and Birmingham, obviously. But yeah, you're right in terms of they've not really used the past couple of wins as they've got them, but they've sort of taken a step back, I guess, with this result. But they, I guess, ultimately have got the playoffs to look forward to further down the line. I guess the big question in the matter is where they'll finish in the playoff positions, because they dropped now to fifth in terms of the rankings, and because of results elsewhere, which we'll get on to. I guess for them, what is more important? Getting the home leg in the playoffs, or finishing the season strong with a win at Burton next week?
It's just both, isn't it? Really, I mean, if they get a strong result, what they need is either Stockport or Wycombe to win. Because if they draw Stockport and Wycombe, then they will be both on 85 points, and a Charlton win would put them as well on 85 points, but they have a lesser goal difference, so they would remain fifth. Whereas if one of those two, Stockport, Wycombe, who play each other on the final day, if there is a winner in that game, then Charlton with a victory will push themselves up to fourth, which gives them that home second leg, which is vital. I think that really does make a difference in terms of having the home second leg, that bit of an advantage, and you've got your fans behind you if you're trying to get back into a game or trying to get yourselves over the line after a good performance in the first leg. But it's all sort of it looked for a long time that it was going to be Stockport versus Charlton. They were going to finish fourth and fifth, but perhaps it might not finish like that in the end. So yeah, I think it makes a difference, but perhaps not as much as you'd make out, because I mean we'll do it next week as well. Talk about that they've lost, we'll put them fifth, blah blah blah, and perhaps it doesn't make as much difference as it looks on paper, but you never know, do you? Because it's always about momentum, the playoffs. I feel like I say that every time we talk about them, but the team who goes in with the momentum are likely to be the team that comes out of it, and that could be a Leyton Orient or a Reading, whoever sneaks in, or a Stockport or Charlton, and the team that sort of falls foul to that is a team we'll move on to in a second, is Wycombe Wanderers, who have been on an awful run of form as of late, which has seen them drop a little bit further down, and they could end up being in fifth come the end of next week after being second for a vast portion of the season.
Yeah, we'll move on to now. Actually, I guess that the Wrexham game was played later than this one, so in their mind, it's sort of new because of the result earlier that Wrexham just needed to win and get a positive result. But that came as a result of Wycombe falling to defeat against Leyton Orient. Bad for Wycombe, but great for Leyton Orient, this one.
Yeah, well, exactly that. I mean, it sets up Leyton Orient so that they've got a straight shootout against Reading on the final day, because they're level on points, and one of them win. It's all about dropping points, isn't it? Reading are relying on Leyton Orient to drop points because they've got a worse goal difference, but they've got a straight shootout between the two of them. One of the two will make it into the playoffs, and they've set themselves up really nicely, Leyton Orient. Now it's in their hands, and after a very good performance against Wycombe, it only finished 1-0 with Randall Williams nodding in across to get the only goal, but that was probably a little bit. It was more one-sided than the scoreline suggests, especially speaking to Sam, who was at the game. Keeley not troubled at all, really. A couple of shots on target, both easily claimed. They had a change of shape, did Leyton Orient, which really helped them. Sam was sort of saying to me, and that, I guess, allowed the win to come to fruition, didn't it? Sort of set the scene for it, if you like. And it was more routine than the scoreline gives it credit for. And a really crucial victory for Leyton Orient. As I say, it is in all their hands now going into the final day. And of course, Sam and Callum will preview the final day of the season later in the week. And it's theirs to lose now, Leyton Orient. They're in sixth spot, have the better goal difference by 8 over Reading. So if they drop, the only hope for Reading is if Leyton Orient drop points, and we'll talk about Reading later on. But a massive, massive win for Leyton Orient. And I guess I'll feed back to you on the other side of it, which is, of course, Wycombe losing. They would have been out of the race anyway, with Wrexham winning later on, but they're firmly out of the race now. I mean, they would have, I guess, mathematically still been able to, with a couple of points gap, if they had won, but they've sort of fell off the edge of the cliff. And the stat I'll give you is, since Mike Dodds came in February, if the season had started on the day he came in, Wycombe would be 8th, which shows you the drop-off they've had.
For sure, yeah, and we've spoken about this many times. Really, they're sort of fortunate that no one else has, because it established that gap from pretty early on. That no one else has. Wrexham have been able to catch them, but they've not done enough really since Dodds has come in. They've not been the team that they were, I guess, prior to his arrival, which I guess is showing now in his latter parts. And they're continuing to slide down the table. Yes, they're obviously guaranteed a playoff spot, and that's fine. It's still got a chance of going up. But actually, from the position that they were in, they should be really disappointed, I think, in terms of potentially finishing 5th in a season where they were second for a very, very long time. That's a massive disappointment, really. I mean, yes, they've picked up some good results on the way, but actually, as a whole, in terms, looking at it from a league table point of view, it's quite disappointing, really. Results at times haven't been there enough. That's now two defeats on the bounce to sort of fellow playoff clubs. Obviously lost to Charlton on Easter Monday by 4-0 as well, so by quite some feet. So they were disappointed. Certainly, we speak about the playoffs, which obviously we will cover when the matches happen, but going into playoffs, you want momentum, and actually Wycombe don't have that at all at the minute. 2 defeats, as I mentioned, to the playoff, fellow playoff sides, and it's a concern for me. Really, is a concern.
And there's a massive disconnect. Well, that is the other thing to sort of couple in with it between the fans and the players, the staff. There is a massive disconnect there, it seems, and we've spoken about that before in terms of how that sort of transpired since Mike Dodds came in, and it seems to sort of starting to hit a boiling point a little bit, with that really being sort of a missing ingredient between the two of them and the two parties. And you have to have cohesion in a football club if you're going to go for promotion. And that's sort of lacking at the minute. So that really sort of sets them on the back foot. And after another bad result like this, it's 2 awful results in a row against teams in and around them in the table. It's only going to go one way, you'd imagine. But one win sort of turns it around, can't it? If they beat Stockport, then suddenly they have a bit of momentum behind them heading into the playoffs. But they know they will be in the playoffs at the very least, with Stockport, Charlton also confirmed to be in that end of season lottery as well.
Yeah, I guess if they were to lose to Stockport, and I guess this is what I'm about to say, it made sense in my head, but might not fully make sense with it coming out. But I guess if they were to lose to Stockport and Leyton Orient obviously finish 6th, then that's losing to every playoff side in the league, which you don't want at all, really.
In the last 3 games, yeah.
Exactly, yeah, in the last 3. Considering you're going to play at least 2 of them in the next, over the course of the next 2-3 weeks in the playoff campaign, that's a concern for me, really. It's not as though, you've lost them at the start of the season when players were new and manager were new, blah, blah, blah. This is in recent time. You very more than likely could play the same teams in 2 weeks' time. And if we're going off sort of recent history, well, recent history is that they got back 4-0 by Charlton. Recent history is that they've just lost to Leyton Orient and they could lose to Stockport. And so that for me is massive concern, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, actually. And that is always, as well as the momentum that we talk about all the time, that the other bit of it is that they'll be facing teams potentially that they've lost to all of them.
Yeah,
as you set out there, Seb, and that's got to play on the mind a little bit, hasn't it? That these have beaten us, they know how to beat us, and we have to win. There also could be the other side of it is they're trying to sort of get a win back, if you like, trying to prove themselves. But yeah, it's just not looking good for Wycombe at all at the minute, I guess is the easiest way of putting it.
No, certainly not. And the side we just mentioned there that Wycombe play on the final day is Stockport, and they played Lincoln at the weekend. Didn't start great, I guess, for Stockport. Started well for Lincoln, but they clawed it back as any good playoff chasers, playoff confirmed sides do. Showing the quality that they have in their ranks.
Yeah, it's the classic game of 2 halves, this one, with Lincoln taking 2 in the first half. Ben House, his first since December, and Eric Ring has got 2 in 2. So I guess the opposite ends in terms of goal-scoring form for the 2 goal scorers. And both goals scored in transition, which is obviously perhaps a concern in terms for Stockport being able to caught on transition twice in the first half. But all those concerns were very quickly put to bed after the interval. Stockport got 1 back early on, and then very quickly 2 became 3, and they turned the game on its head to see themselves edging up the table and up to 3rd. And there was seemingly what one of the big takeaways, certainly online with Lincoln fans, was that they turned into a shape with 3 centre halves later on in the game, and that really sort of the wheels fell off after that intervention. So that is I guess a sort of an aspect of it that is a real negative in terms of game management and that side of things. But all credit to Stockport. Coming from 2 goals down at half time is no easy feat.
No.
And it's an incredible, showing incredible sort of resolve to come back. And it's what winners do, isn't it? You mentioned it's what playoff teams do. It's what winners do against adversity. 2 goals down, come out of the second half and turn the game completely on its head. And yeah, another strong performance from a physical, dominant, really impressive Stockport team.
Yeah, that's twice in a week actually that they've come to get a win. From behind, they obviously went 1-0 down to Huddersfield on Easter Monday, and then grabbed sort of 2 pretty late-ish goals at home. As I mentioned, that same week. So really good sort of the comeback mentality, the winning mentality that any good playoff side has, really. To come out and to overcome a defeat, really, and overcome a scoreline that's really not in your favour. That's a sign of a positive side, and we've seen that so often with Stockport this season, scoring just a couple of minutes after half time, which they did, I guess, set the ball rolling for that second half performance, and topped off by a Tanto Alafe finish. So yeah, they just keep plodding on, Stockport, and they, for me, are the real dark horses. It's worth noting as well that there was a triple half-time substitute for Stockport, so that obviously made some sort of impact. But when you are bringing players off the bench, that you want them to make an impact, and that's exactly what they've done. Actually, February, who got that first goal, was on as a half-time sub, and so players coming on the pitch and instantly grabbing the impact that is what we want to see, and that's exactly what Stockport keep doing. And twice in a week they've come from behind to win a game of football, which I think is really impressive. Credit to Dave Challoner, and Lincoln obviously clearly issues there, but Stockport, I guess, will use this from we spoke about momentum and the playoff sides when we just spoke about Wycombe, and Stockport have plenty of that, don't they?
Yeah, and Dave Challoner, you mentioned Hare. I mean, we saw the stat the other day that since he started his managerial career, he's never finished lower than a playoff spot, which is absolutely remarkable.
Yeah.
Another one here, and they're up to 3rd now. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable, really, that how well they're doing. And it's such a well-run club, and it's such a good team. And losing Louis Barry in January, I guess we're a bit of a broken record on that regard. But it's not affected them at all. They've carried on, and they've just become so able to spread goals around, which is so important when you get to this sort of end of the season and you're not relying on one person, you're relying on a whole team. And it's seen them over the line once again. And that in-game management I mentioned, perhaps in terms of it not working for Lincoln, triple change at half-time, they come out and score 3 goals in the second half, Stockport. So it's the other side of it that it's working for one, perhaps not the other. So yeah, as I say, very impressive victory for Stockport. And they just keep rolling.
Yes, they certainly do, and that's all what all good playoff sides have, indeed. Next up, we're going to chat all things Reading. Before we get onto the match at the weekend, Jamie, you've been catching up with Andy Preston, haven't you?
Yeah, that's it. I spoke to Andy on Friday. We had him on last time there was a big update from Reading, and now with the newest off-the-field update in terms of an extension of the deadline for them needing to have a sale put in place. I spoke to Andy Preston once again, the editor of Reading Today. Con, where do we find you this time around, a few weeks since you were last with us?
Yeah, thank you for having me back on, Jamie. Again, this situation is still rumbling on at Reading. The latest development we've had last week is that the EFL deadline for the club to be sold has now been extended. So the original date was April 22nd. That's now been extended to May the 5th. And the club announced that Dayong has now agreed terms on the deal with an unnamed party, which is believed to be former Wycombe chairman Rob Couhig's, probably the worst kept secret in football at the moment. Everyone knows the identity of that party. So now we're just in a situation where we need the final negotiation to take place and everything to be signed. We've been in this situation before with Rob Couhig. We know how unreliable Mr. Dye is. So until everything's signed, sealed and delivered, no one's going to take anything for granted.
I guess so. This is sort of the second time the deadline's been moved sort of more recently, hasn't it? It was originally, I think, the 5th of April, wasn't it? We've sort of added an extra month to it. Is it positive in a way that obviously this deal is sort of, it seems definitely like it's on its way to being agreed?
I think so. I think we're finally there with it being the final stage of negotiations. Of course, we had Robert Platek, the American businessman, in exclusive talks last month. Those talks broke down. Seemingly, a deal was just far too complicated to get anywhere, with Kuhig still on the scene, with him holding the liens with the club, and the ongoing court case which you spoke about last time with Mr. Dye and Rob Kuhig. It's all very complex. So doing a deal with anyone else other than Kuhig was always going to be quite unlikely. So now we're at the stage where every other party's out of the way. It is just between Mr. Kuhig and Mr. Dye to sort out final terms. I think the fans have mixed feelings on it. I think at this point we'll just take anyone who isn't Mr. Dye and just have to deal with any issues that come the way of when Kuhig owns the club. But I think there are reasons to be optimistic as well, and to look forward to the future. And of course, things are going really well on the pitch at the moment. It's just the off-field stuff that needs to get sorted.
I guess you're saying there, you said sort of when it happens. Is that how it feels like? It's more of a when than an if now?
I think it is at that stage now, yeah. I think ever since we saw that Robert Platek's deal was off the field, off the table, sorry, I think it was a matter of, when not if with Kuhig. And I think a lot of people predicted it, even when Platek was still on the scene, that Kuhig would eventually end up owning the club. He'd been very vocal recently on quite a few different podcasts talking about his desire to still own the club. From a business point of view, I think he's played a bit of a masterclass, really. He's got Dye in a corner now where he seemingly has no other option but to sell to him. I think finally it is at the stage where it's going to be completed very soon. But like I say, no one's going to take anything for granted. That the way the fans have had to deal with all of this for the last couple of years, there's absolutely no way that anyone's going to get ahead of themselves until it's done. We even had Rob Kuhig at a game last year, which he spoke about recently, that he was invited by the club to go to, drum up some hype behind him buying the club and seemingly to get a deal over the line. Of course, that didn't happen that time. And I think this time the club would have learnt their lesson. Well, seemingly they have, because they're trying as best they can to keep his name under wraps, although everyone knows the party that's involved. So, we can be optimistic that hopefully the May 5th deadline is met, and then we go from there.
You obviously touched on it a couple of times there in terms of sort of the fan response to it. What's your sense of that? Obviously, being around Reading on a day-to-day, how are the fans feeling now, with it seeming definitely a lot closer than it was last time we spoke?
I think, to be honest, that everyone is just so fed up of talking about the ownership situation. We've had this for nearly 2 years now. It's crazy that it's still going on, and that fans are having to think about these things. You should, as a football fan, be able to support your team on the field, and that should be enough, really. To have to deal with all this in the background, and I think a lot of people have suffered a lot with the stress and worry that's come about from the last couple of years, worrying about if their club will be here in the future, which is just horrible to think about. Hopefully, at least in the very short term, that is secured. That the club confirmed in their statement that the party in negotiations is going to fund the club until the deal is done. So that's really positive news, that we don't have to worry about staff being paid on time. That should all be sorted now. Like I said, there's going to be mixed feelings on Kuhig because of this whole situation with the court case. But I think we have to just look at the way he ran Wycombe, a very tight ship on quite a small budget, really, a modest budget, and had them in the Championship. And was pretty successful there for his 5 years there. So, I don't think Reading fans are asking for someone to come in and splash loads of money. It's just to have a stable club. And you look at the club's academy, which is absolutely thriving. And if someone could take advantage of that and then just invest a bit in the first team to have a bit more squad depth, and I think the future can be really positive.
I guess that's the key, isn't it? No one's sort of asking for perfection. It's just sort of you don't want to have to think about it, and you want just to have that solidity in behind you. And it seems like Kuhig offers that.
Yeah, exactly. It's been, I don't even know how many years, 3 or 4 years, maybe even longer, of transfer embargoes, of having to shop around the free agents market. So just to have the opportunity to go in and purchase some players would be fantastic for the club, even if it's not a big expenditure. Because, actually looking at the priority really is keeping some of the players they've got there. Because right now, I think the situation we're in, if we got to the end of the season with no deal being done, I think it'd be something like 6 or 7 first-team players left in contract. So that would be an absolute disaster. So I think number one priority for when the deal is done is to make sure that contracts are extended, because Reading have some absolutely fantastic players there in the first team. And I think there's no doubt if Reading don't go up in the playoffs this year, they'll be one of the favourites for promotion next season. I think that's more than reasonable to expect. Noel Hunt's done a fantastic job with this team, and if he can have a bit of support from the ownership, then I think everyone could be optimistic that Reading can push in and around the playoffs again.
I guess finally then to sort of pivot over to that sort of side of things. We're recording this before Saturday's game, so we're not going to sort of talk about that. Obviously, me and Seb will talk about it in the podcast itself. But how much would promotion getting into the playoffs mean in general, in terms of if Reading are able to do it? Because it's sort of a nice end, you'd say, wouldn't it? Is I guess the way I look at it.
Yeah, I think if you'd gone into the season and told someone at the start of the season that Reading would be in the playoffs, they'd be shocked, really, because of the off-field situation. So the fact that they're in and around there and have a fantastic chance still, of course, needing results to go their way. But it would be such a much-needed boost for the fans if they even just get to the semi-finals. A trip to Wembley would be even better. Although the club don't have great history there, it'd be great to rewrite some good history there. It would be an odd one if the club did go up, because I'm not sure they're in the best situation right now to be looking to the future in the Championship. Maybe it'd be beneficial to have another season in League One to build with some stable ownership. But at the same time, if there's a shot of promotion, you're not going to turn it down. And I think that would more than convince a lot of the players here to stay. I think even if the ownership comes in and Reading don't go up, I'm quite confident a lot of the first team players are keen to stay. On the pitch and the management, it seems a great environment at the moment. I think you see that in the results.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Andy. Not only great to talk to you, but great to talk to you in a bit happier news than when we last spoke. So thanks for coming back on.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Andy Preston there from Reading today. Great insight from him as ever. Great to get him back on a more positive news around the club. I guess another positive news regarding Reading was the result on Saturday. Another victory. At the minute, doesn't quite leave them in the playoff positions, but they're not very far off, Jamie.
Yeah, it's out of their hands, but they're still in the race and heading into the final day. That is a great result for Reading, as Andy was saying in that interview there, in terms of just everything going on off the field. Just to be in this mix is a real accomplishment, and a 2-0 win for them, as you mentioned. Wing 2-2 for him, and Campbell got a goal in stoppage time to really seal it and pile more pressure on Bristol Rovers, who we'll talk about in terms of the relegation picture, I guess, in a minute. But just one defeat in 6 now for Reading. They have a worse goal difference, though, than Leyton Orient, so that is the permutation that they need to better Leyton Orient's result. Orient travel to Huddersfield, whereas Reading host your lot, Barnsley. So they're relying on results going their way, but they put themselves in a really good position and played well in this game. And I mean, Bristol Rovers aren't much to beat at the minute, really, if we're going to be honest with ourselves, but they're facing a team who are fighting for something, which is always a difficult opponent. But they've managed to get over the line, and by the seams of things and looking at the game itself, that they were well clear and made light work of it, really, in the end.
Yeah, you can only beat what's in front of you, and Reading done exactly that. Sort of couple of players popping up, Wing with the goal, and Savage and Nibs both with assists as well. Sort of the key players of the season, and Campbell with the other goal, of course, like you mentioned. But these sort of key players stepping up at a time where Reading need the players to step up. Coming to the business end and business time for Reading to pick up results. Really, I guess. The players on the pitch are sort of just keeping the club going in terms of making sure they're doing what they can to make sure that they finish in that top 6 places. As for Bristol Rovers, who obviously Reading beat, it doesn't look great for them, does it, really? They are in the relegation zone, now have dropped to 22nd, so it's not as even that they are the sort of last team in that bottom 4. They're in 22nd, and I guess results elsewhere have made sure that the Bristol Rovers' survival chances are looking very slim. But in terms of the result on Saturday, they've not helped the causes, have they?
Well, no, and it is all but over, isn't it? I guess you'd say. Burton are 3 points ahead already and have a vastly superior goal difference. It's minus 15 for Burton, minus 29 for Bristol Rovers, and Crawley just above them is minus 27. So just in itself, that is a massive swing that even if Crawley or Bristol Rovers win on Saturday coming, that it's very unlikely to be enough to usurp that goal difference gap. And to add to that, as we'll talk about in a little while, that Burton play on Tuesday night. So they have 2 games by which to claim just the 1 point that will mathematically end the fight for safety. But Bristol Rovers really struggling. They have 1 point from their last 27 available, 1 draw, 8 defeats in their last 9. And I mean, it's relegation form for a reason, isn't it? They're down the bottom end of the table. They've been in that mix for a long while, and Inigo Calderon has just not been able to get that team going. And I think we've spoke before about the gap of experience between himself and Gary Bowyer, and perhaps Gary Bowyer knowing how to get a team out of a relegation scrap. Whereas Calderon, who's obviously a great coach, comes in with really high recommendation at Brighton, and you don't exist in that sort of environment in terms of a Premier League team without being a good coach. But perhaps it's just the lack of experience and not being able to galvanise this team out of this really awful situation they've been in that has seen them slip and slip, and now, completely out of their hands, and it is really just a matter of time.
Yeah, it's been really disappointing, I think, for Bristol Rovers, considering they were, I guess, sort of around the January period. They looked really good. New manager just come in and things are looking really positive. But now, almost certain to be relegated. And we mentioned that they're now in 22nd. It's actually Crawley have now got 2 wins on the bounce. So although they are, they themselves are not mathematically down, they are very likely to sort of be in that boat as well. But actually, they are looking the ones more favourable in terms of now 3 unbeaten as well, drew to Birmingham a couple of weeks ago as well. So things aren't looking good for Bristol Rovers at all at the moment in time, and they're almost certainly relegated. You mentioned just there in terms of Burton Albion, they just keep on winning, and they've done exactly that against another side in the bottom 4 against Cambridge on Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess just to piggyback of what you were saying about Crawley, first, they were so close to getting something against Peterborough a few weeks ago, and there was a very late penalty, I think it was, in that game. And just imagine how different things could be. Yeah. That's one result, and perhaps this good run has just come 1 game too late. It's the fine margins of the division, really. But they've done well to really still be in the mix, because I think we all wrote them off at the start of the season, and they eventually will go down, of course. Just given the fact that it's a 12 goal difference, even if Burton don't pick up another point in these next 2 games. But Burton picked up all 3 points in their game at the weekend, leaving a little bit late against Cambridge in a bit of a manic game, a very end of the season sort of game, I think. 2 red cards, a late goal for Cambridge, and then an even later goal for Burton to put themselves back in the lead. As I say, puts themselves 3 points from safety, 1 point away from mathematically sealing their spot in League One next season. And it was a really silly incident that gave the red card. Loft for Cambridge was sent off after a bit of a push and a shove. I don't know if you've seen it, Seb, but it was a very weird sort of incident. They were chopping each other's heels, Loft and one of the Burton players, and then they sort of swung out at him, and that was the end of that. And then JJ McKiernan got sent off seconds later for a completely different incident. The ball was sent over the top, and he runs in and sort of runs into the goalkeeper and gets himself booked for a second yellow. Gets himself booked for a second time. Gets himself sent off. So a very weird sort of manic couple of moments in extra time of the first half, and perhaps that opened the game into being a bit more end-to-end and open, really, in the second half. And Bodvarsson scored from a tight angle. All the goals came after the interval. Bodvarsson with the first one. Kachunga pulled it back before Dylan Williams in the 93rd minute. A massive goal for Burton Albion, that one, because it has put them well clear in terms of that relegation fight. And it was a really nicely worked move late on that he finished off quite neatly. And they've just done a superb job, haven't they? I guess before we pivot on to their game on Tuesday, they've done so well to carry on. And this isn't an easy game. Of course, Cambridge, this game has relegated Cambridge, but they could have been still in the mix with a very slim chance had they won. And Burton have just done so well, not only in this game, but just in this whole run in general since Gary Bowyer came in to turn the entire ship around and steer the team to safety.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sort of when Bowyer first went in, there were question marks over, not necessarily him going in the first place, but why he would go sort of that low, if you like, sort of bottom end of League One. Why he would go to a club like Burton Albion? Well, he's shown exactly why he deserves to be there. Sort of as well, all but mathematically confirmed their survival for League One, where really there was many times where he wasn't looking certain at all. So yeah, he's gone in there, done a great job, picked up some great results as well along the way. Beating Huddersfield Town by 3-0. A couple of back-to-back clean sheets as well, and victories on just incredible. Really, their form has been unbelievable. And yes, there's been the odd result that they'll not be happy with, but it's against some of the top sides. No one can be ashamed of losing to Wycombe, losing to Stockport, losing to Wrexham. You can't be too disappointed with that. But yeah, real impact Gary Bowyer has made. It's been incredible, really. Absolutely. And I guess he's ultimately got a chance to confirm survival on Tuesday. Just before we go into that, I guess a shout out to Williams, who got that winner on loan from Derby, just 21 years of age, and he actually set up Bodvarsson's goal as well to sort of open the scoring. So a goal and an assist for him for the 2 goals that Burton scored. I think just worth a mention from a Burton point of view. I guess as for the game on Tuesday, it's at home against Wigan Athletic, who have nothing to play for. Burton just need a point, and then the relegation places are decided then. Can we do it?
And that would leave us with just the one spot of the table left up for grabs in terms of going up or going down, which would be the final playoff spot. It's not. I don't think it's as easy a game as it looks on paper, because Wigan, they're 6 unbeaten, and in that run, I think even more importantly than that is that they've only conceded twice. They've become under Ryan Lowe incredibly difficult to beat, which is. I guess the way we've been describing Wigan quite a lot over recent weeks, but that is just how they are as a team at the minute. They are difficult to break down, and if they're not winning a lot of games, they're not losing very many either since the new man came in. And Burton, though, they'll just be hoping to end it before any... I mean, it would take some hell of a final day drama for them not to be safe, given the goal difference swing, as we mentioned. But just to have it done before the final day is always favourable. And you could fancy a draw in this game, couldn't you? I guess is the way I feel about it. I'll hand back to you in terms of... I know Sam and Callum do their predictions league that's going right down to the wire. I guess we'll offer our own predictions. But for me, I think it's sort of a game that you can just see ending in a draw, because Burton, a draw is enough.
Yeah.
And Wigan don't concede very many goals. So you don't see it being a classic at the Pirelli, but I don't think anyone will really mind, especially if you're in a Burton persuasion of the fact that they just need that 1 point, as we mentioned already. As for Wigan, obviously nothing much to play for in terms of league position. But as I spoke about it last week when I was guesting on the Fourth Tier Fever podcast, that even if teams don't have things to play for, there's always something, whether it's a new contract in the summer for players or trying to prove themselves to be part of a team, and with a new manager, of course, not the newest in the division, but it'll be his first full season in charge, Ryan Lowe, and it is obviously then becomes the fact that players will want to stand out and be put the trust in them to be part of a project for next season. So I think there's always something to play for teams, but obviously Burton have a much more to play for in terms of just mathematically putting the relegation fight to bed. And I fancied them to do it with a draw. But do you have any other prediction?
Yeah. Well, a draw is all they need, isn't it? Really. So I guess they've had 13 of the draws this season, and Wigan have had 15. So Wigan have had more draws and wins or losses. More wins at least. So certainly not too well versed with drawing, shall we say, and likewise for Wigan as well. I honestly think Burton will go and nick this one. I think Wigan, as you mentioned, don't have anything to play for. Not that there will be a rollover. I agree that it will be harder than perhaps what some people are making out. But I just think the momentum that they've got, I think the form that they're on, just plucking results out of nowhere. I can back a Burton Albion victory here, and of course that would mathematically then relegate Crawley and Bristol Rovers. So yeah, I think they can do it. As you mentioned, they only need a point, so a point wouldn't be a bad result at all. But I think it would cap off a really nice, a really successful campaign under Gary Boyer.
Successful second half of the campaign.
Well, success. Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah. Since sort of Boyer's taken over, yeah. And it's sort of the last game at the Premier League this season as well, before going away to Charlton on Saturday. I think they're more likely to get a result against Wigan on Tuesday than they are against Charlton on Saturday. So what they don't want to do is leave it to the wire away at the Valley on next Saturday that is. So yeah, they won't want to do that. So yeah, get a result. I'm going for a win on Tuesday night. So yeah, but of course, as you mentioned, Sam and Callum do their prediction league, so you'll be able to hear that on the next preview podcast. Elsewhere, just to sort of summarise the results that happened across the other games in League One, bottom club Shrewsbury beat my club Barnsley by 2 goals to.
Are we having a word on that? I think we've got time.
Just shortly, John Marquis, former Donny man, clearly doing what he should have done all season and putting the goal, putting balls in the back of the net. 2 of them at the weekend, and yeah, shows I guess a rebuild needed at Barnsley over the summer.
Yeah, and I think that's sensible. I'd take John Marquis. We're going up. I could have kicked John Marquis in League One. We'll have him back.
Hey, we're not into next season yet. Donny not in League One just yet. Get a few
He's
weeks.
a great striker, though, isn't he? That
is. We can chat about. Yeah, he is. He just in a poor side, I think. In a poor side, poor Shrewsbury side. But yeah, he's a challenge. So yeah, he grabbed 2. We sort of covered this earlier on. Crawley Town beating Northampton by 3 goals to 0. Again, Crawley not mathematically relegated, but result for Burton on Tuesday would confirm that. Meanwhile, Exeter come from behind to pile on more misery for Huddersfield Town. They beat the Terriers by 3 goals to 1. Peterborough and Bolton drew 1 apiece, as did Wigan and Blackpool. And then on Sunday, we had 2 games on Sunday. One of them finished Stevenage 1, Rotherham 1. That was down to a last-minute late winner from Dan Sweeney, which salvaged a point for Stevenage. And then the game involving the champions, Birmingham City, they were 4-0 victors over Mansfield Town at home. So that is all the results covered from the weekend. We will be back, me and Jamie, next week for the final review episode of the season. Hasn't that one gone quick? But in the meantime, Sam and Callum will be back, as I mentioned, with the preview show. And if you want to get even more involved on our X or Twitter page, League One Lowdown, we are sort of running a player of the season poll, so feel free to get involved. It's a Google form. And yes, we want to hear who makes your League One Player of the Season team, if you like, 11, if you like. So yeah, we've got the form on that. Just to confirm, that's on our X channel at League Number 1 Lowdown. You can find us on there. We'll be tweeting that along with our last episode that Callum did with Gab Sutton. Certainly worth a watch. Obviously, a man full of EFL knowledge. But that does conclude things from this podcast. Thank you very much for joining. Thanks to Jamie as ever, and we'll be back very soon.